So, in the previous video, if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It's really, really important for this. We went over all of the bits and pieces that you would need in order to create your own little or big project. So in order to utilize this video in the best way possible, whether you have watched the last video or not, you already should be at a stage where you have the context and the story behind your project. You should have already outlined the purpose and the intention behind this project that you're creating, or this product that you're creating as well. Then the element that we went over in a lot of detail in the last video, the target audience of the project or product that you're creating, the goals and objectives of this project and or product, which is different from purpose and intention. So just to clarify, purpose and intention is essentially the vibe, you could put it that way, the deeper meaning that you put into a project that you're releasing, whereas like the goals and objectives are more real world kind of material metrics, things that can actually be measured. So there's the SMART goals system. If you don't know what SMART goals are, then please go and look up what SMART goals are before you actually go and create a project. I should have probably mentioned that before, but you know what? At least I'm mentioning it now. SMART goals. Goals essentially should be measurable. So goals are real life things, real life aims that can be measured and can have time constraints. Whereas the purpose is the more general, like what is the purpose of life? And then coming right up to the goals and objectives, you should already have decided on your success metrics and KPIs for this project, your desired project deliverables and constraints. So the things that you're planning to deliver for this project, I think it's quite self-explanatory, and the constraints that you have, so like resources, budget constraints, time constraints, so anything that could get in the way of you getting to your success metrics. Then this was the first exercise that we did in the last video. You should already have the assumptions 100% listed out of what you assume to be the context, the ideas, and like the expectations that you have for this project or product release. And obviously the rough timeline, resources, and budget estimates for essentially what, how long for, and how much you would require in order to accomplish what you have set out to accomplish via, once again, the goals, the metrics, the KPIs. All right? All right. But now, before we release, we're almost there. You're almost ready to release your project. But we need to talk about branding, because you can't just put a project out there on a blank slate. I mean, you can, because like essentially, especially in the way that I have acted, like the projects that I have created are essentially my personal brand. But even behind my personal brand, there was the intentional thought put into it that I have later refined with every project and product release that I have created. So essentially, yeah, I stand my case. You can't just release a project or a product on a blank slate and hope for the best, right? We need to prepare. And how do we prepare? The space, the area, the fertile ground for releasing a product and a project. We create at least a somewhat brand for you. And of course, as you may have heard, branding is a lot more than just a logo, a company name, and like a company slogan, right? I think everybody at this stage is updated with that. If you're not, don't worry, it's never too late to learn. But yeah, branding is a lot more than just the logo, the name, and the slogan, right? Branding is essentially the message that you carry with I mean, I love curry, nothing against curry, but that you carry, British, English, what are? So branding is kind of the attitude and style and manner of relating to your audience, your customers, and your clients. And of course, I could go on and on about like strategic branding and aligning the strategy of your brand to how like government and policies and things like that and cultural norms are evolving. But this is not what this series is about. This series is all about just like taking all of the knowledge that I have obtained over the many years of experience and condensing it into digestible bits on which you can act in the here and now. So before we get started, let me just quickly introduce myself. Hi there, my darling humanoids, androids, reptiloids, asteroids, or whatever way you like to identify yourself. My name is Maria, I'm an architect by education who then went into UX UI design, then accidentally slipped into doing marketing for different brands and companies, and then that ended up spiraling me into working as like a full-fledged business architect for startups. And some time ago now, I have created a series of guidebooks that you can find for free on my website, linked down below, that now I have decided I would like to make into a series of YouTube videos just to make them easier to digest and apply. And the subject of today's video in particular is branding. So let's jump right in. So to go along with this video, I would really suggest that you once again download the PDF guidebook that is called Branding Template by the link down below and go through it as you're watching this. Or you can alternatively just watch this video and make notes somewhere on a sheet or in a Word document or whatever space you prefer to make notes in. And any good brand typically starts with a backstory, with a context, something to get the users inspired and driven, to drive the audience, get them invested into what it is that you're doing, who you are, what this product is supposed to be. So a good starting point is always to begin with the founder's introduction and background, where, especially if you're the founder, I hope you're the founder, you essentially summarize exactly what has been happening in your life that ended up leading you to creating this project and or product and or company. So to understand what the purpose of your brand is and if you really actually need a brand and if it's time for you to even create a brand, which I would always say it is, because essentially you live and you already have a brand just by the way that the persona that you have created across your life, that is already a brand, but that is a whole other subject that we can discuss in another video. But essentially, this is the part where you formulate how this project, company, startup has started, why you are the person and how you got inspired and how your past essentially informed the future that you're attempting to create with this project and a product. So to get the people, including yourself, actually invested into the product and a project that you're trying to sell to them, they not sell just in the monetary terms, but, get invested into the concept of the idea of you want to be selling the idea of what the future with this project and a product looks like for each one of them. Because what people really buy is not the product or the project itself. It is typically the feeling, the sensation, the concept, the future that they're looking for, that they see this project and a product as the solution to getting. So if once again you remember from the last video, when we're talking about the audience selection and when we were building the hypothesis about the audience and the clients and the users, we had to think through the goals that those people have. So this is exactly where it ties in, that essentially this is like the beginning of your marketing journey and the journey of you pushing the product that you're trying to push, where you get the opportunity to resonate with a certain audience, where you tell them that, yes, so this is the future that I see, and the audience that sees a similar future for either themselves, the world, or whatever it is that they care about, goes like, oh, yeah, I see that as well. And then you go, yeah, so this is the solution that will get us from where we are now to that future that I'm talking about. And the audience goes like, oh, really? How? And the how is essentially like the next steps. But the first step is to trick them by resonating with them on a level of aspiration, ideation, and idealization. That was a sweet one, okay? Ideation, inspiration, idealization. Oh my days. I'm coining that. I'm sorry, but this is my thing now. If anybody else has ever done it, I'm sorry, but it's my thing. I just came up with that. Ideation, inspiration, idealization. Yes, that is what we want for your brand. Okay? Period. And this ties right in with the topics and interests diagram that I will first of all insert right here, and second of all you can once again find in the guidebook down below, where essentially this diagram is the opportunity for you to once again align to your audience, to your users, to your clients. So besides just outlining the exact future vision that you see with your product, this is where you essentially will be proposing via what means, what methodologies, and what niches of media and information you will be taking your users and or clients to that final outcome that we all desire. Well, and plus, obviously, the section is extremely important in terms of marketing because by outlining the topics and subjects that your project and a product and a brand will be touching on, you will be able to also find the most suitable channels through which to actually reach the people that you are seeking. Because obviously, people in certain niches of interests and topics and subjects tend to gravitate towards certain media outlets, towards certain locations, and so on and so forth, where you will jump in and be able to actually advertise and do marketing for your product. So now that we have come up with our ideation, inspiration, and idealization, so the vision of the aspirational future that we're proposing, and we have come up with through what means, through what topics and subjects, we will be taking our audience towards that ideal future. It is now time to actually tell the audience and yourself, so through defining to yourself, tell the audience, what is actually the goal, so what you as the brand are actually accomplishing. Once again, remember, goals should be measurable, realistic, and have time constraints. So this is essentially our promise with our brand to our audience of how we will actually be contributing to them towards that future that they're aspiring towards. And of course, both for yourself and for your audience, you need to be able to clearly state why exactly this goal that you're taking them towards or through is actually important to them, to you, to the planet, to whoever the subject of care is in your case. And in talking about the importance of the goals, you can never understate the consequences that you essentially believe you will have with your brand. But these are two slightly different considerations. So first, you have to outline what the actual goal is, which should be measurable and realistic. And then you also have to think through the consequences and the impact that your brand will actually have. So not just in terms of reaching the goals and the promises that you make to the people, but through actually becoming conscious of what exactly all of the potential outcomes will be, including environmentally. Like I have recently been in a panel where we spoke about green investing, and especially obviously in the EU at the moment, it is like a huge subject. And I believe that like by 2027, America has also pledged that most of the companies from the US will be adhering to the new standards set by green investing, where now most of the companies will be obligated to actually state outwardly what is the impact on the environment, on the carbon footprints, and all of those things. So since, as I understand, green investing is becoming more relevant, this is my huge tip to you to already, at even the earliest stages of building your brand and company, consider what will be the ESG impact of your brand, what will be the environmental and societal impact of your brand as well. And then after all of that, we have to run back a bit, and we have already stated how the founder came up with the idea and how the company started, but now we need to state why are you, so if you're a single founder or you have a group of people, why you are the people to actually be accomplishing and delivering what it is that you are accomplishing and delivering, why it is you that people should be listening to and attending to and buying products from. And consequently, you have to decide on the voice of your brand. So, who is actually speaking from the brand's name? Is it you as the founder? Is it somebody from the team? Is it certain representatives? Or is it even potentially a made up character or a made up concept that is delivering the messaging and the interactions of your brand? Is it like a mascot of the brand? Like, for example, Duolingo is doing, where instead of speaking from the name of somebody in particular, some real person, they have a made up mascot, which is the Duolingo bird, and all of the characters from the games in Duolingo, from the names of whom the brand is interacting with their audience and or customers. So after determining who is actually the voice of the brand, you have to also determine what the brand voice is like. Because especially if it's not a made-up character and is instead a real person, you might actually find that it's not too easy to maintain consistency as a real human being. Because as human beings, we obviously change. And so if it's a personal brand, obviously it can be a part of the goal, a part of the story that the brand is evolving with you. But if you're trying to sell a particular fixed concept that is a solution in the here and now, a product that people should buy in the here and now, it is likely best to maintain a particular brand voice. Because again, with the exception of personal branding, typically, especially in consumer products, people tend to trust more consistency. So in personal branding, once again, okay, yeah, you can shift and change, you can change your attitudes, you can change your style and things like that, and people will just stay with you based off of like emotional investments into your personal story. But if you're creating a consumer product, you have to be consistent. And now, besides just naming who is the voice of the brand and how that voice sounds and interacts with their audience, you have to also determine what is the persona of the brand itself. So, this is not about the mascot, this is not about the person that represents the brand, but instead, what is kind of the archetype that the brand represents? Like, is it strict? Is it minimalistic? Is it cyber focused? Is your brand perhaps a member of the elite class that is speaking down to all of the elites in order to make them feel that, oh yeah, I have something more to look up to? So here you have to decide on the characteristics that that persona carries, that that archetype has. How would you describe it if it was, once again, a hero? So again, we're not describing the mascot of the brand, we're describing the brand itself as an individual entity. What characteristics and descriptions would be applicable to the archetype of your brand? Because right after determining the archetype and the persona of your brand, we can finally get into the identity of your brand. And this is where finally you get into the logo, the name, the slogan, and things like that. Because you can really only decide on those things once you have determined all of the previous. Now, of course, like you can't just make up a logo off of the top of your head and make up the name of the top of your head. But really, if you want to have that like sweet brand professionalism, you have to decide on all of the previous subjects before you come to this topic, so that when you're thinking of the logo, of the name, of the quote that represents your brand and things like that, of the brand colors, you have a holistic image that sticks and is consistent with the rest of the messaging and the goals and the future and the subjects and the themes that your brand is interacting with and carrying. So after outlining all of the previous bits, like the future that you envision, the goals of the brand, so on and so forth, this is the place where you finally state the brand message. So what is the message that your brand is trying to deliver to the audience? What if your brand could say something like in 3 sentences maximum, preferably like two or even one sentence. If it could just say something so powerful that the audience would understand what your brand is aiming for and striving for, what would those sentences be? And after that, once again, extracting from the subjects and topics and goals and aspirations that your brand is representing, you can also outline the brand values. So, what are the priorities? What are the values that your brand is delivering support for? What are the values that your brand stands for and supports in collaboration with other brands, for example, as well would fall in here. And next, in order to support and bring forth those values, you have to outline obviously what products you have already released, the products that are currently in the making, and the products that you envision and are planning. And why do you need to already think about the products of your brand that you might have not yet released? That is because after this is where you can refine further the logo, the colors, the fonts, and all of the little designy bits of your brand. Because once again, if we think forward, that allows us to already assess and assume roughly what resources and concepts we want to be delivering. But yeah, the last bit that I will leave you with in terms of design and like branding language is that I believe I made a video on psychosemiotics in which I briefly touched on the subject. So how color, shapes, forms, language, and so on and so forth forms and connects to certain parts of the human psyche in order to evoke certain emotions and feelings. So if you would like to dive a bit deeper into that, I would also recommend watching that video. I think I'll be able to attach it here, but if I can't, there will also be a link to that video down below. So lastly, before I move on to marketing in the next video, I will just also have to mention the subject of websites in this video as well, because we live in a digital age where most of the interaction of different brands happens through digital media, such as social media, and websites tend to be kind of the central hubs on which all of the brand information is stored for the audience, on which the audience is most likely to encounter and find all of the useful links to all of the needed information of the brand. So I'm not saying that you have to do the website yourself, although you can if you would like to, but just to make sure that you're well prepared for what is in store if, for example, you decide to hire web developers to do the website for you, I would just like to take you through multiple questions and multiple subjects that you would likely have to think about, because there's kind of the standard form that most web development agencies provide to founders when founders ask for like a marketing service or a website building service. So to create a website, we need the information on, first, what does the company actually do? What is the product that you're selling, the service that you're providing, so on and so forth. What is it that you're doing? What are the actions that you're taking, the products that you're delivering, the messaging that you're delivering, so on and so forth. What do you as a brand do, as a company? Second, who are the main competitors of your brand and or company? And preferably you would be able to provide examples here while also outlining their strengths and weaknesses. Next, if your company has already existed before ordering a website, or has already provided some kind of services, or has any kinds of achievements, you also need to outline what the achievements of your company thus far are. So like, let's say that maybe your company has existed as just like a team of developers that haven't formed a business yet, but have already like discovered or done some research that is really cool and has ended up achieving something. This is the place where you should also outline like any and all achievements that your team, company, so on and so forth has. Then besides outlining all of your products and services that you're providing that we did in one of the previous steps, you also have to outline what is kind of the primary, the main product and a service. Like, what is the star of the show? What is the star, the central point of your brand? As well as what features of this product and or service would you like to especially be outlined and highlighted. And this is once again where your competitor analysis would come in useful. And I should have probably mentioned that at the time, but what I meant by the competitor analysis 2 steps ago was also the websites of the competitors. So besides just analyzing the direct competition in terms of their products and features, you also should be mentioning like what their website is like and what you like and dislike about their websites. Because now, in terms of competition, you need to actually talk about what is similar and or different with your product and or service from the competitors and similar products and or services. Like, what makes your product, brand, service stand out? And to follow through on that, also you have to state what precise problem for the clients and or customers and or users does your product solve. And then obviously to better determine the style and methodology that is used for building your website and SEO as well, which is, I don't know if you need to know this, but SEO is search engine optimization. The web developers and designers and brand people as well, like, brand designers, marketers, and so on. This is actually extremely useful for everybody. Once again, outline what is the target audience. But the thing is, this is a sneaky point because in some cases you might actually have a different target audience for the website than you do for the product. So whereas like the target audience for the final product might be, for example, children, the target audience for the website will be the parents of those children. So what is the audience and users of your product? And what is the audience for your website and potentially marketing material? Then here we are kind of getting into the user experience territory, but as the founder and the owner of the brand, you should also be able to think through that. But what is the journey of the user from the first interaction with either the marketing material or the website to the final purchase of your product and or service? So essentially the most optimal way to go about this is to actually go through this pipeline of like how would a person who is unaware of your brand would slowly become aware of like a problem that exists that your brand can then solve and consequently become aware of your brand in particular. And from becoming aware of your brand, how would that person be directed to the marketing materials? How would that person interact with the marketing? And consequently, how would that person get in touch with your website? What would be the purpose of that person interacting with the website of your brand? And how does the website and any marketing materials relate to the final purchase, the final decision, the final deal that your client makes with you as a brand? Because straight after determining the interactions of the clients with your brand, you would also have to outline the marketing channels that you at least think you might be using. So it's a bit early to talk about marketing because we'll talk about that once again in the next video. But you can already start estimating and coming up with like what social media channels would you be using? Would you be using like billboard advertisements potentially? Would you be giving out like flyers and things like that? Like how would you be advertising and marketing your products and brand? And then beyond just considering initial attraction and the pipeline of bringing a customer to purchase a product and service from you, you also have to outline the full life cycle of your client. So think beyond that. Think also about how you're planning to actually retain the client on the platform. So consider, once again, how would the client, first of all, become aware that they have a certain problem? Find out that you, in particular, as a brand, have a solution to that problem. So how would the customer become attracted to your products and or services? How would the customer end up purchasing the products and or services? And then how would you ensure that the customer essentially comes back for more later and stays in the loop of purchasing and coming back for more and more products and services, and essentially gets like invested into sticking to your brand, becomes a loyal customer eventually, hopefully. And then considering the concepts of the client lifecycle, you also have to consider what effect should your website and marketing materials create. So should your website and branding and marketing material create the wow effect? Should it be calming? Should it feel supportive? Does it need to feel like a warm hug from your grandma? What is the emotion that you as a brand desire to evoke in the viewer? Next, again, depending on whether you're making the website by yourself or you're getting a special agency to create a website for you, you can go into a different level of detail here, but you have to think about the features that the website requires. So, once again, if you're creating the website for yourself, you obviously have to think through absolutely every single one of the features that you would like to have on the website. So, how many buttons would you have? Where would you have them placed? Why would you have them placed there? So, what would be the optimal placement of buttons in what order for the user and the customer to get led to the required links and resources in the correct way and in the correct order of priority? Yeah. Would you have like a map to your location at the bottom of the website? Would you have like the links to the different social medias of your brand on the website? Yeah, so on and so forth. But then if you're getting a design agency to create a website for you, then obviously you just have to think of like the main features. So like, would you like to have some calls to action? What should those calls to actions be? Should there be like a services offered page? Should there be like a shop on the website? Like, the general things that you would like the website to provide in terms of like resources and features to your clients and audience. And very lastly, besides just looking at the competition, it is always good to also have some good design cases. So examples that you actually like, and not just in terms of websites. So obviously for web design, you would need to select a certain amount of websites that you like the design of, and they don't at all have to be in your industry or in your niche. So just in general, any examples that you enjoy that are in some way or have some features that are in some way related to you or the brand or the company, or websites that just have features that you enjoy that you would like included. Obviously, always keep a stack of such websites. And then beyond websites, it's just in general a really useful practice to always keep like a mood board of good design that you enjoy, that you can always highlight precisely what are the aspects of those designs that entice you, what made you draw your attention to them, so that later you can once again provide those examples to any personnel that you will have working on your like branding collateral and designs on social media, or so that you can look at those examples yourself if you are the one that is working on all of the design aspects of your brand, and kind of learn from the best in a way, or select and pick out the separate features that you really enjoy from different bits of design and advertising, and try to combine those things into like a successful outcome for your own brand. And yeah, in these last few steps, I ended up accidentally dipping a little bit already into marketing. But once again, that is a whole separate subject that we will discuss in the next video. So for now, we have discussed what are the basics, the base considerations, the questions that you should ask yourself and your team potentially in order to create the branding for your company, the branding for your product, the branding for your service, depending on what the purpose of the branding is. Right? Right. But yeah, that's that. It is what it is. For now, stay good, do good things for good people, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!